What started as an attempt to dominate world football has now accumulated so much power, so much exposure, so many new stars and eyeballs, only to create the biggest meltdown in football history. We are going to buy a football club. We are going to dominate Europe. We are going to win the Champions League. We'll pour an infinite amount of cash into this club, sign the biggest players and managers. Surely that would make us the most powerful football club in the world, right? Right? If only it was that easy. Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. On Sunday, March the 13th, 2022, there were ugly scenes in the Parc des Princes. In their Ligue 1 clash against Bordeaux, the PSG supporters did the unthinkable as they proceeded to boo the living out of Neymar and Lionel Messi. This event shocked the entire football world, and as a club which is no stranger to drama, there has been next level intensity both on the pitch and behind the scenes for PSG. The club president Nassar Al-Khelaifi went absolutely crazy on the night they lost to Real Madrid. Pochettino's job is currently in danger. Well, to be honest, it wasn't always safe in the first place. Reports that sporting director Leonardo's position is also not safe has surfaced. There is now a cloud over the futures of both Messi and Neymar, and the club's ultras are now even calling for Al-Khelaifi to resign from his position. And with all these issues, you simply can't help yourself but to wonder how. How did PSG go from everybody's favorite to winning the Champions League title this year to the most unstable, chaotic, and catastrophic club in Europe? And how did one of the GOATs of football turn into the worst signing in the club's history? Let's start from here. Depending on who you ask, it was coming. It wasn't just a matter of how, but a matter of when. You see, I made a video about this topic a little over 2 months ago, which I totally recommend you watch after this one, but the point here is that from that period to now, nothing has really changed. Without making it seem like I am bragging or something, I absolutely saw this coming, hence I wasn't even surprised when the late horror show at the Bernabeu happened. However, the way or manner in which the tension escalated so quickly is what absolutely surprised me. After all, this isn't the first, second, or even the third time the Parisians were eliminated this early in the Champions League since the QSI takeover in 2011. Al-Khelaifi's reaction on the night proves that something else apart from the ludicrous amounts of money they spent on both player transfer fees and contracts last summer was at stake here. Maybe it's something that has to do with the FIFA World Cup tournament taking place in Qatar this year. So join me on this journey as we uncover the problems behind PSG's failures on the pitch and the structural and cultural problems that currently hinders the club from taking charge and dominating Europe as they had planned. It is no secret that PSG are one of the wealthiest clubs in Europe, backed by an entire state, which is where all the money they spend on the day-to-day running of the club comes from. When the QSI acquired the club in 2011, they based their initial recruitment strategies on the signing of mostly young talented players in order to take the club into the future, accompanied with the older, most preferably well-known players to help boost and promote the club's brand and image as a whole. Without wanting to go fully political in this video, I think we all know why they acquired PSG in the first place. The club was acquired in an attempt to change the wider perception of the nation in the public's eye ahead of the 2022 FIFA World Cup, which would of course be taking place this year in none other than Qatar. I don't usually discuss politics on this channel, but for this video, it is very important for you to know that bit, as the World Cup will indirectly become the reason for this. Now, to be fair, PSG has always stuck with this model of signing young players along with big name stars, where you will now start to see how over the years things really started to change. While the model was still clearly being followed, the the power gradually started to shift, and due to the excess influx of money, the club's culture became almost unrecognizable. PSG as a club is no stranger to encountering things such as player power and indiscipline. This has been a massive hindrance to the success and cohesion of the squad. You see, a club like PSG, which isn't a Barcelona, Real Madrid or Manchester United type club historically, will only be able to attract big players using one thing and one thing alone: money. And also the beauty of Paris, if that also counts, you know. No, but to be serious, PSG isn't a mega club historically. They don't have that 1950s European domination tale to tell, or the story of Johan Cruyff's dream team, or the glamorous tale of Manchester United's 1999 treble-winning team, or the stories of how great Liverpool were in the late 1970s and early 1980s. They don't have none of that. And while Paris Saint-Germain is quite a young but historic club in France, their historical prestige will only appeal to players who grew up in France. It's funny because those players have now been either left to rot on the reserves or were sold due to lack of room in the first team to break through due to the constant chase for players who only come to their club to reap the financial benefits and nothing more. That's why the 2020 Champions League final gave them a little warning that they have been threading on the wrong path, a warning which they since ignored, only for something bigger to happen to them during their attempts to wake up an all too familiar ghost of the past. It's often a general perception that PSG players only sign for the club because of the money, and although players like Marco Verratti has dismissed this in the past, the situation of how Gini Wijnaldum got to the club makes it really difficult to believe otherwise. Last summer, it was almost certain that Wijnaldum was going to sign for Barcelona, but when it came down to him making the move, he chose to sign for Paris Saint-Germain instead. He had since cleared it up, saying he didn't sign for the money, but many are not convinced that is the case. Another case study is that of his former Liverpool teammate Mohamed Salah, whose contract renewal negotiations has been taking forever, and as reports state, he's currently not opposed to moving to either Barcelona or Paris Saint-Germain. And if he ends up signing for PSG, there will be no doubt that he did it for monetary reasons, given that if he wanted a platform to win the Champions League, as Verratti claimed is the reason why players sign for PSG, he already has that at Liverpool. And truth be told, Liverpool has a much better chance of winning the Champions League compared to PSG this season because of course they're already out, and if things continue to go this way, even next season. Salah is leaving Liverpool because of money, so if he signs for PSG, game over. My point here is that even though it's not every player that is there for the money, there are some who are only there because of the money, or in other situations won't leave because of that money. The point is that PSG didn't create a team that is united with the same goal. While they often tell you that their goal is to win the Champions League, many of those players have different things that is driving them towards that goal, which isn't just for the love of the club alone. Did Neymar sign for PSG out of admiration for the club? No. He signed because he wanted to get out of Messi's shadow at Barcelona, and at the time PSG were the only club who could give him everything he wanted while he chased the dream of becoming the world's best player, which of course never happened. In this situation, it was a win-win for them. They provided Neymar the platform to become a superstar while they were also profiting from his image at the same time. Mbappe is also another person whose success at Real Madrid will give him more of a personal benefit than of the team's. It's no secret that Mbappe wants out of PSG, so is there a better way for him to advertise himself to Real Madrid than being the cause of their Champions League elimination? If you look at it from a cynical point of view, then you say Mbappe's job in that tie was already done after scoring both home and away, and while his club is currently languishing in sorrow, he won't be part of the long-term consequences, as he has now more than convinced Florentino Perez on signing him. It's only at PSG where you see things such as clauses in players like Neymar's contracts stating he has to greet fans before every game, or that he shouldn't criticize or make bad comments about the club, all for which he will be getting paid an agreed sum of money for. The writing is clearly on the wall for everyone to see. PSG give their stars an undue amount of power, and if your club is dependent on making your stars happy in that way, then how are they going to feel accountable or responsible for the direction the club is headed? And yet again, you can't fully blame the players for this because if a child gets spoiled while under the watch of the parents get the lion's share of the blame. PSG needs to attract players who want to come for sporting purposes and not just for financial purposes. I don't really blame the players though because football is a short career and so they want to make as much money as possible before retirement. Footballers come and go, but the club stays forever. No player is bigger than the club, even if it's Messi or Ronaldo. And you know you're doing something wrong if 70% of the reasons why players sign for you is because of money. That is why Mbappe going to Real Madrid will benefit Madrid in many ways because they are getting a player who wants to play for the club's badge and not for money alone. According to boardsource.org, a player power is an individual who attempts, successfully or not, to assert undue influence, dominance, or control over a group. We have seen this happen at basically every club, but not to the extent of what is happening at PSG. The players for a very long time have always had more power at the club, even more than their managers, which explains why many of their managers, as soon as they leave the club, become super successful elsewhere almost immediately after they're gone. Indiscipline is another issue. Well, I'm not surprised because they signed Icardi after not many clubs wanted him because of his controversy at Inter. So, there were cases where Ibrahimovic was allowed days off to go hunting in the forest of his native Sweden. Edison Cavani and Javier Pastore returning late from mid-season winter break, a move which even led to public criticism from their own captain at the time, Thiago Silva. And more recently, players like Mbappe and Rabiot arriving late for pre-match sessions, which ultimately led them to being dropped on the bench for an all-important match against Marseille during the Thomas Tuchel era. Neymar reportedly not showing up for a meeting with the club sponsors, a move which he didn't receive any punishment whatsoever for. Players showing up late to training, Icardi not informing the club that he would miss training to solve issues with his wife, and so on. The level of indiscipline being tolerated at the club is making the job of their managers really difficult, and as a manager, how can you command respect or stamp your authority in a dressing room if the bigger players are just going to go behind your back to ask those above you for whatever they want after just refusing them, only for the hierarchy to just grant it to them no matter how irresponsible their demands are, and worst part of all, you as the manager wouldn't even be questioned as to why you refused. In the summer of 2021, PSG had arguably the best transfer window of all time when they signed some of the biggest talents in world football in their bid to finally win the Champions League. The less reputable ones have gone on to have decent seasons, while the big name players have suffered woefully. Messi is the most notable disappointment because of his status and the expectations that everybody had for him. Sergio Ramos' time at the club has been plagued with several injury problems and an overall lack of fitness and match sharpness, and Leonardo, well, has not lived up to expectations too. The manager Mauricio Pochettino just couldn't find a way to fit in the world-class trio of Messi, Mbappe and Neymar in his front line without being massively exposed defensively. While many are blaming Pochettino for their problems, I won't, because if I were a manager whose entire philosophy is based on high pressing and working hard to win the ball, I'd struggle too. If you put yourself in Pochettino's shoes, then you start to realize how impossible his job was, and the problem wasn't even created by him. PSG were blinded by the promise of the media buzz, the fanfare, merchandise sales and so on that they dragged Lionel Messi into a system that just clearly didn't suit him, not to mention the age at which he came and how much he had to adapt. The series of bad decisions made by the club's hierarchy for the past 11 years culminated in their Champions League tie against Real Madrid, where the club simply handed down a beating to the modern-day Galacticos. Al-Khelaifi's reaction on that night, his grief, was of that of failure. According to an article from Goal.com, the Qatari owners wanted to win the Champions League this season as it was the year where the World Cup will be hosted. So they needed the Champions League as proof of their success before they'll go on to host football's biggest tournament. Perhaps that is why they decided to adopt the Galactico policy as some sort of a last resort in order to make this happen. The major catalyst to PSG's downfall is impatience. Manchester City was acquired in 2008 but only got to the Champions League final 14 years after and still patiently waiting for their time to come. And Chelsea was acquired in 2008 and although they got to the final 5 years, They only won it 9 years after the takeover. PSG wanted to use their wealth to cheat the nature of competitive sports, and it backfired to the point where, far from their initial model of signing mostly younger players and few superstars, they ended up signing younger players who were more of superstars than youngsters, and one too many older superstars. And that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for making it this far. As usual, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace out.